Hey guys, today we're going to get a little bit weird. I have a lot of motivations for working on this page from The Dark Knight Returns. This started as a bit of a coloring exercise. I thought it might be fun to do a more modern interpretation of this 1984 classic that was done with like colored pencils and markers. It is great. It's awesome. And it's probably is it the highest selling graphic novel of all time? But this piece holds a special place in my heart because it's the first comic book I ever remember holding. This is the first page that I ever remember seeing and being like, "What is that?" It's also probably my favorite Superman moment, and I'm not a Superman guy. This, of course, is where after Superman's been blown up by the atomic bomb, and he's falling back to Earth, and he's talking to Earth, and he's calling it Mother, and I've loved you, I've always loved you. We're both powered by the sun. And he's just like, help me, bring me back to life. I look like a demon. I'm supposed to be Superman. And there's not, apart from the whole kryptonite thing, there's not a lot of these moments where he seems vulnerable and, he's Superman. So, uh, anyways, I have a bunch of brushes here in the slush pile that some of them I've made with textures, that I've made with photographs that I've had, some of them I've downloaded, and some of them I've downloaded and then modified. And I'm going to kind of pick at these, I think, as well, and see if we can't use something. Um, so let's get started. We're going to start with the background. Let's get Now we're going to put some kind of screened silhouette and lightning effect, like he's being electrified. There's going to be a giant bolt of lightning going through him. And because of that, we don't need to worry about contrast. We don't need to, it doesn't matter. I mean, the line art, so these were, I should show you where we started here. These are the inks. Where are the pencils? So these are my inks. This is my interpretation of the page. I didn't look at the original. I just wanted to do something that was sort of the way that I saw it in my own head, because this is a memory for me. Now, another motivation I have in doing this is that I have a new printer. I want to, when I sell prints, I take them or I send them out to a printer, and then I have to go and pick them up. And it would be way easier and probably cheaper if I just had it, if I could do it at home. So I've bought a decent printer that can do 11 by 17 format. And rather than waste $2 sheets of cotton rag on stuff I've already done and looked at, I want something that I can put up in my own house, because I have none of my own art up in my office. So I want to change that. I want to make we're going to work on some projects that are just so I can have stuff that is important to me around my office to make me happy, which is usually not what you're doing when you're creating stuff. So it's fun. If we turn this off, these are the original Frank Miller pencils that I scanned. They are super, super loose. A lot of them, in a lot of cases, they don't make sense. They're missing lines. But what he's done is he captures, even with these kind of scribbly lines, the forms are already there. Like, look, this Superman logo he's missing a piece here. If we look at the inks, like, we had to fix that. But it's just little stuff like that all over the place where you just have to interpret. And, his nose is weird there. And there's just little spots like that all over the place where you need to, I don't want to say tighten up, but just make sense of it and flesh it out a little bit. And that was really fun because I'd never even seen Frank Miller pencils before. And these in particular, they were just more loose than I expected, but in a pleasant way. So yeah, we've got this background here, and we're going to try some stuff. We're going to try some weird stuff. It's going to be strange. Okay? I'm going to let you know that right now from the jump. So this, First we should get the gradient tool out. This goes from purple at the bottom. Something, it's kind of a deep saturated purple. And then it gets, I don't know if it's pink. Pink? A lighter pink? Let's see how that looks. Oh, derp. Hey guys, at this point I sped the video up because I didn't really talk during the video, and probably 20 minutes into coloring it I just stopped talking altogether because I realized I was just going to come back at the end and narrate over this. But I'll describe a couple of the things that I'm doing here that are a little strange. First, I've got this is the brush that I'm using where you see that black on white. This is like a Japanese ink blot brush. I think it might be designed for clouds. I download some of these brushes from Clip Studio, which is inside Manga Studio, and I had never used this brush before. I think I got it yesterday, and I wanted to just see what it looked like, I guess. So since this is just a piece for me and my wall, who cares? Just whatever I like. And I probably went overboard with it, but everything is in Japanese, so you can use the translation. And I actually used the translation for a brush that I'm going to use here in a minute to give like the static outline, and it was called Black Lady Head Brush. It's like an afro brush, and I don't think I'd used that before, but I've had that one a little while. And I was just looking for something to create kind of a static field around him, and I could have just used a stippling brush or something like that. Here I'm trying to find a brush for the lightning, and I don't know what I'm going to do, and this is like my slush pile of brushes over there, like the bottom, very bottom tool setting. I have something like 134 brushes in there. I need to like pick 10 and then delete the rest. Here's another one of those Japanese lined kind of, I think this one's used more for shadows and filler. And you could create skies with it. You can do all kinds of things. And I'm really adding lines at various odd angles to make the piece seem uncomfortable, because it's kind of it was just a nuclear explosion. Not that I mean, look, I know that I went overboard. I just wanted it to be super vivid and weird, and I want to look at this. I want to hang this thing on my wall, and it's all purple and strange. So it's my prerogative. I don't know. That's what makes me happy, and it's cool to do if you don't have any of your own art hanging up in your house. Like, it's satisfying to just be able to do whatever you want, and the only person you need to make happy is yourself. And I know that like you can be your own biggest critic or whatever, but in this case, it's like, let's have some fun. So I put the lightning in with one of those Japanese character brushes, and it actually looked pretty cool. It's got a little bit of brushy edges to it, so it put little lines, so I added a few more with a G pen, or my modified G pen. I added those little lines around, and now I've got the afro brush. But it didn't look at the color. It's pink, and then the afro brush wouldn't change color, so I had to go in and change the whole layer color, which is what you might do if you were turning pencils to, blue pencils or whatever. That's what that setting is made for. So in Photoshop you do it a little bit differently, but that's the only thing I think I did that was different than had we been doing this in Photoshop. And I'm definitely going to port some of these strange Japanese brushes that I've been downloading into Photoshop and make them available to you as soon as I can, because they're just so different than what I'm used to using. In Photoshop, I'm very fond of my chalk brushes in Photoshop, and I cannot for the life of me recreate them in Manga Studio. So I think I'm just going to leave that part of my work over there, because I do plenty of, like, I'm going to finish this image in Photoshop. For coloring, it's just different. Here I'm putting in texture, and I'm seeing, like, I know that there's not supposed to be any rendering on Superman, but I feel like what I'm doing is I'm splatting out little pieces, and then I'll zoom out and say, hey, does this look okay? I don't know, it looks like crap. Oh, we better move it. Oh, this is stupid. And so I ended up just putting like 2 or 3 lines of shadow on him, and then there's just a touch of airbrushing on the cape, and maybe a little bit on one of his hands. So the rest of this, I'm just sort of, before I think I finished in screen mode. Did I already screen the lightning? It doesn't look like it. I tried a couple things there that didn't work. And the big lightning bolt is sitting just underneath the ink, and I'll move that layer at the end and let it sit on top of the ink. There was a flatting error. I will say that I tend to have a sparse number of lines and bigger blocky chunks of shadow. And because I'm a colorist, when I draw, like I think in color. I'm like I want empty spaces. I want, vast fields that I can color and texture and whatever. Whereas if you were just a penciler, you would be thinking in some of the, you can add. There's so much that you can add via hatching and the things that I don't know how to do or that I'm not very good at. And so my art is stylized based on my limitations. And this super squiggly stuff it's very sparse, but there are just lines kind of everywhere. And some of them, I don't want to say for no purpose. They have a purpose, but it's just a mutilated form that it's hard to really add anything to. So as you can see, I kind of gave him a pit stain, and then there might be one other thing. Here, I just want to add some kind of strange static highlight to the head, because I feel like he should have just a little bit of lightness in there. He has got a lightning bolt passing through him, after all. Here I'm taking that purplish pink color and just screening. Well, this is I start with a texture brush, and I knocked it down a little bit with opacity, and I didn't like how that looked at all. And then I ended up just going with a traditional soft airbrush, the most common way. And I think I needed to do something as minimal as possible here, because it is kind of overdone. So that's going to be it for this. I'll color the rest of it and post results. Take care.